From the report of the Health Ombud, and from what we have heard before these proceedings, it has come out that subsequent to the implementation of the project and the transfer of the mental health care users, there's been a number of users who unfortunately passed away. I take it you have heard of that.
That's correct, Council.
Do you have any regret to the loss of life in respect of those mental health care users?
Yes, Council.
And if you look back at how the project was implemented, and with a bit of hindsight, regard being had to the testimonies which has been led before these proceedings, what do you think could have contributed to the loss of life?
When I look at what has taken place, I realized that firstly, the patients that were placed from Life Esidimeni were placed there with no supply of medication that was supposed to. That's number one. That made a delay for our doctors in the province to find the medication. The second thing on medication was the polypharmacy that Life Esidimeni was practicing. You find one patient on 6 to 7 medication. And on top of that polypharmacy, we were not given the records that will indicate that patient so-and-so might have suffered this type of side effect. So we didn't know about that. The second thing was that the records that will indicate to us that a patient, for example, the patient on a treatment called lithium therapy, you need to continuously take blood levels. No blood levels report was given to us. So we just had a patient without knowing what is it that they undergone when they were at Life Esidimeni. And then the other thing, that the condition in which we receive them back from Life Esidimeni does not guarantee that after the notice of termination, the situation at Life was still as it was before the notice of termination. And that might also have contributed to the lower response of patients to the support of the NGOs and hospital. I'm saying this because patients didn't just die in the hospital, in the NGO, they also died in the hospitals. And again, also, I will say when we took patients with a mental disability, they are also coupled with physical disability. And that alone, physical disability, is a concern because people with physical disability, apart from mental disability, they've got challenges physically because of the structure of their body, and that will need more of the staff. And the other thing is that the issue of finances, although we try to help, but the finances should have been ready by the right time, and that decision as it was taken, we should have had the finances, and also the support of the family. Because if people, we needed the support of the family as well. Because if people have left home with problems, or like some of our mentally ill patients will have destroyed and become aggressive, we should have ensured that the family are well trained, those who took the patient back, so that they will be able to manage them at home.
Okay. Thank you. Is that all that you think have led to the unfortunate death of these mental health care users?
It's just some of the contributory factors. I'm not just saying they've just led only all, because the support is also very important. As the whole process was not properly supported, even from government within, it was an issue, because we knew that as we terminate, Life was going to lose their funds that we've been sending to them. And then we also knew that some of our team who used to explore in providing services in Life Esidimeni, Arabs, they will lose that benefit as well. And as a result, the support that we needed was not really rallied as we may look at. And again, the NGOs as well, when a call was made, some NGOs that were new and presented to us what they can offer. And we saw some of the staff at that time. Although we knew that we didn't have enough funds, we didn't pay them in time. But we will hope that the NGO should have acted as the legal entity to respond quickly. If they didn't respond too quickly to our patients who were sick, to send them to the clinic. And also in the clinics and in the hospital, the whole support that we were looking for, it was like a difficult endeavor that we were trying, because when the NGO were visiting the places in some clinics and hospitals, they were not properly supported. And also, as much as I regret for the death, like maybe if when there was a call and all the toys and the rest, maybe although it was extended by 3 months, maybe another 3 months should have helped. But all in all, the department never planned that anyone should lose his life. And it was a whole process of pain to most of us who were working with this patient.
Thank you. But having given an account of the factors that you say they have contributed, do you have any remorse to the deaths of these mental health care users who were affected by the transfers from Life Esidimeni to the various NGOs?
Yes, Council, it was so painful for me to learn even of the first death in the department and in where I'm working. One death is one death too much. So it was a very strenuous and painful words or news to know of even one first patient that died. And I really feel that I was so saddened. I don't know how I can explain that, and the pain that the family also undergo because of the process.
I mean, you know now that people in attendance in these proceedings, they are family members of those who were affected by the implementation of the project. And what can you say to these family members with regard to the loss of life of their loved ones?
You know, to the family members, I will say to them, I regret that their loved one passed, and I'm saddened, and I feel that I'm so sorry for their loss. That's what I can say. And they are never alone in that, although we know that the pain will hit the family more than any other person. But that was very, very painful news to learn. And I want to say, I will appreciate if the family can really find a closure in this, if possible, with them.
Thank you, Dr. Manamela. Justice.
But closure comes from hearing the truth, is it not? just posit a situation where you lost a family member. What would you most want to hear?
Justice, I would want to hear what happened and what was the condition. What should have been done to prevent, if possible? And what should have been done? Yes, I think I would want to know the condition and that led to the loss, and what should have been done to prevent that.
Yes.
And the people also, the truth about the whole issue.
Yes. Particularly from the truth from those who should know the truth. Is it not so?
That's correct, Justice.
In other words, those who had power and had access to the knowledge and to the truth. Do you think you've done well on this score in the 4 days that you are talking to the families and to me?
I think I've done well because I gave what I know. Sometimes what we know may not be what people expect, but from the point where I am, supported with the evidence that I have, which was not asking to this, I did my best to answer the question according to how I know them, and also ask to give some further discussion or explanation so that the team here and the family will know what actually took place. So I tried my best.
Because when one says, I am remorseful, or I regret what happened, isn't it necessary that one identifies the harmful things that one apologizes for?
That's correct, Justice.
For instance, there are family members here who their loved ones were at Siabadinga. Shouldn't it be you in your authority to say, yes, indeed, the conditions at Siabadinga were not ideal for psychiatric care? Shouldn't it be you who leads that charge, who says it to them? I acknowledge that the conditions at Siabadinga were not proper for psychiatric care.
That's correct, Justice. I think I also said that.
Shouldn't you go on and say, yes, I acknowledge that the conditions at Anchor were not, according to your knowledge, professionally, and your position, executive-wise, were not what they should have been when their loved ones were there and they lost their lives? Shouldn't you at least say that to them?
It might have been missed, Justice, because I said, although at the beginning when we gave license, things looked so well. I even mentioned the way that the taste is in the pudding. When the patients were there, not only in the two, in Siabadinga, in Enka and maybe Siabadinga, but we realized that things are not as it was presented at the beginning. I mentioned that, and that also, Justice, it really pained me because at that time, when we issued them with the authority to take care of the patient, as the legal entity acting on their own. Things were seeming so okay, but thereafter I indicated that those challenges were emerging, and it never fared me very well.
Yeah, but without being defensive, shouldn't you, as a bare minimum, Manamela, as a bare minimum, to say to those who are paying, I thought Takalani was okay, but in fact, from all the evidence I've heard, it was not appropriate to take care of the mental health care users moved from Life Esidimeni. Shouldn't they hear that from you, who was in charge of the project?
That's correct.
Will you say it with your own lips to them? Will you say it?
Yes, Council, Justice. I can say that in some of the NGOs that we believed or were based on the report was given to me, the NGOs were suitable at that time, but later we found that there were challenges, and that made me to feel saddened, and I regret that at the end we found that the NGOs, some of them are not as we planned and advise what needs to be happening. And I was really saddened, and I know the families who found whatever they found that they testified about, they will also be in a very hurtful situation. And I feel that it's not what we wanted to see, and we feel that it was very much painful for the family, and we feel as department that, I feel from my unit that should not happen, and it hasn't happened in the past. We'll try that it shouldn't happen again.
Let's go to another area that caused a lot of pain in this hearing. You know all about last offices of deceased loved ones, isn't it so?
That's correct, Justice.
And in your profession as a nurse, you are trained on how to give due respect to a deceased patient.
That's correct, Justice.
Do you think your unit paid due respect to the deceased who came out of this project?
Justice, it can be both ways, but I know for sure where there are professional nurses, like in our Kalinen, the last offices should or must have done properly. If it's not, the area that had so much was for informing the family while the last office's procedure has been done properly, and then the family were not informed properly, and that is really regrettable, Justice.
But you heard the evidence. I know you've been following the evidence. You told us so. Those bodies were not handled with dignity. And I want to hear you as a leader acknowledge that and apologize for that. How could bodies from Precious Angel, undressed, in large quantities, be placed in a walk-in cooler or freezer of a butchery? Now, we passed the death. Death has happened in ways that we heard about. Why was the department not there to intervene as people died and try and give them last offices, give them the final respect. And left it to these NGOs under-resourced, no money, no training, no professional ability to deal with corpses. What do you want to say about that?
That is regrettable, Justice. And it's just so much painful because the NGO, as they were busy with the last offices, the department will only be informed later. And hearing that horrible state that was said, it's not something that any person will take in so easily. It's really regrettable.
Yes, particularly because your department sent them there, and they go and die there at NGOs, and you're not there to help the NGOs deal with the victims of the Marathon project. I mean, I would like to hear you tell these family members what you think about that and whether you had a role to ensure that there are proper last officers.
Justice, we had our role was that when the patient's sick, we never planned or anticipate that patient should die in the NGO because we gave the list of the clinics and the hospital. We were under the impression that they will take the patient to the nearest hospital according to severity of illness, and they will pass on there if they have to pass on there, and then there will be the process of last offices and informing the family will be dealt with properly with the hospital, not in the clinic. That's why I said that is really regrettable of those who were managed by the NGO at their last offices.
What about those who were at Cullinan with a mortuary that did not work properly and the decomposition occurred? That's under your authority.
Although those who are in Cullinan were under CEO's authority, as we are not interfering as such, but there is a policy in the department, if I still remember, that when your mushara is full, you can maybe send the patient to government mushari. You cannot pile the patient because at the end of the day, we must bury this patient in a very dignified way. So,
yes, but are you prepared to tell the family members you had the evidence, it's unacceptable, and you apologize for that?
That was very much unacceptable, and I feel from my unit, we really not happy about the situation, and we apologize that if you found your family member in that area, that is not one of the plan of the department. It's really regrettable.
You know, Dr. Manamela, the evidence here indicates that several bodies were in the mortuary for months, weeks to months. Is that ideal? Is that part of the people that you transferred from Esidimeni? And when Dr. Kinoshi testified, there was still at least one body which had not been identified. Is that ideal? Is that helpful to these loved ones and respectful to the deceased?
It is not cancer. It is not. The challenge of some not having families and found the addresses in time contributed to that, but that cannot make it to be okay. It was not.
And after all said and done, who do you think should be held accountable for what you've just described variously as not okay? Who should be held accountable?
Justice, accountability, and responsibility, they are two statements. And I will say, I don't know if I can clarify a few points for this.
Yes.
I will say, firstly, on Friday in these proceedings, it was said there is some legal regulations and act that says I need to be given the delegation letter, which I haven't come across it because the act was silent. If that is how it is, then I will take that responsibility, the accountability for those licenses. But as for now, I haven't had that. But based on what my team has given me, that put me to say if they gave me the right or the wrong information, I can be accountable for what they've given me. The second one is that on the basis of all these team members, the project team members, including the DDs in my office and myself and project manager, who went out and evaluated the places, although not all, including some of the SASOB doctors who went with us. We have to take responsibility for what we put. Although we put that at that time it was legible, but later things happened. So that is one of the areas that we need we should have looked at. But I will say the whole team will have to take that responsibility. The whole team that visited the areas will not be dismissed away from that. And the leadership of the project, the leadership of this project will also be accountable, but they didn't go with us and we didn't go to each and every one.
Why would the leadership be accountable if they didn't go out?
It's the same thing like...
To the operations on the ground?
Isn't that when you are a leader, you deliver through people?
Yes.
And what people are providing is their responsibility, but the accountability is still coming back to you. So that's the reason I'm saying that.
And which of the leaders do you think should be held accountable? Starting with you, who are they?
There are specific areas where the leader will take responsible. That's what I wanted just to list to the justice and, the team here. I dealt with the license and the assessment of those licenses. But with the assessment of those licenses, all these people, including engineers, at the end of the day, the accountability came to my unit because I signed the license. But the responsibility is with everyone who went out to look at the area where we are going to send the patient, including SASOB doctors and our own doctors. And the second thing is that the action that led to patient death, without questioning them, and without questioning anything about the death, because death is death. We cannot justify that. And everyone who took action towards that will be responsible, especially the people who will be giving care. For example, if it's in the hospital, the ward hospital, those people will be responsible, but the CO accountable. The NGO will be responsible if they found to be followed wrong processes. But as the province, my unit will take that accountability together with the district. And there was also an issue of financial issues, financial challenges, where we found that there were NGOs that also contributed because they took the service level agreement home and brought it back late. And with that one, they will be also taking responsibility while for sending them late, while the district and ourselves in the head office taking accountability for not paying them in time. And that is something that if this project will ever be repeated, should not be overlooked or underlooked as such. And it also something that I want to bring to you, Justice, that although I've mentioned death is death and is one death too much, but there were, at the moment where I am sitting, I've been suspended. I don't know I don't know the progress in terms of the post-mortem and issues, but looking at this, the refusal of 30 days treatment by Life Esidimeni cannot be undermined.
Who should have ensured that there were post-mortems made after the patients you had placed had died?
We have got the DDG Libet who was working with them. It's in the government mortuary, but that government mortuary is not falling within us.
The DDG, just give the name.
The DDG Libet was working towards that. So, however, Justice...
And do you think your unit did its work in order to procure the post-mortem reports?
That function does not fall within my unit.
No, but once you had placed the people and they died, didn't you have the responsibility to follow up and make sure that there are post-mortem reports?
We followed it up, and it was reported that Dr. Libete will handle it because he was in the past the leader for government mortuary, for forensic. So that forensic part does not fall within my unit, but following it up, if I was still in the department, we were following it up. That's why some of the family, I went when we asked them that let us do the post-mortem.
So you didn't think the families died of natural causes, did you?
I cannot say I didn't think or I think, but we in the health professional, we know which patients are automatically classified as died of natural and not died of natural. But because of this process, we felt that let's find out what actually happened with this patient, because there were a lot of variables that needed to be conceptualized for us to find out what actually did happen to this patient. Because I will say this, Justice, because at that time, even at Life Esidimeni, patients were still passing on, and we never let them go just like that. We did the same thing that we were doing when they were passing on at Life Esidimeni. So we wanted also to do it as they were.
And why didn't you do it here? Of the 143, my memory tells me, well, post-mortems are quite limited, about only a third of them, or even less, slightly less than a third. Why didn't you ensure that there were post-mortems in relation to everybody, deceased body, as you did in Life Esidimeni?
Just in Life Esidimeni also, it was not done to everybody, but with this process,
no, why didn't you do it here, in this case?
We recommended.
You started the project, it was going wrong, people were dying. Why didn't you make sure there are post-mortem reports?
We recommended that we made sure that the post-mortem is done.
To whom? Who are we and recommended to whom?
Okay, the project, myself and the project team and the project leader, we asked that, and it was said Dr. Libete will handle that because it's falling outside my responsibility at that level. So by the time I left, we knew there were patients whose body was taken for for autopsy. But because I left, I'm not having any information at how far the department is at the moment. What I can say
No,
here
but I'm
is,
talking about when you were there, ma'am. People died, you've heard, in March, in April, in May, in June, in July, in August, in September, in October, when the Ombud came into being. In that period, why didn't you secure post-mortem reports for everybody who died in these circumstances?
okay, Justice, a post-mortem report under normal circumstances is being recommended by the doctor who saw the patient, and they know which areas they must recommend for post-mortem. And it's not done in the department, it's done in the forensic section. And the police also have to be involved. So as a result of our project, when we saw that we do have a lot of patients passing on, we wanted to know what actually took place. And that's when it was handled in that fashion.
But why didn't you take active steps? You wanted to know what happened to make sure there's a post-mortem in every case. That's my real question.
Like I said, Justice, it's not within my delegated duty, even if we talked about it. Because when you are asked that you know, there are areas where it's a must, and even the police will not ask you about that. And now when you need the post-mortem where it was saying it's a natural death, there should be an explanation. That's why it was handled by a person at a higher level.
And so we must ask Dr. Liberty about all this. I thought we were making progress about apologizing to the family. The regrettable things that have happened here, Doc, out of the Marathon project. In any event, who do you think anybody should be charged criminally for what has happened in these deaths?
Justice, this project was managed by a lot of team members, so I may not be able to make that decision to say, or recommendation that I think from the autopsy and from what you gathered, a decision can still be made, but I'm not in a position to say so and so should be charged.
If you were the HOD currently, who would you hold to account? Who would you charge? Let's start first internally, disciplinarily. Who would you hold accountable for the things that went wrong and led to the deaths?
I think the first thing will be to investigate what went wrong. Because without such evidence, it was going to be difficult for me, if I was the HOD, to say so and so must be charged. I will have to let the investigation take place and look at the report, and then I can decide after that.
Knowing what you know now, who would you charge?
The challenge of knowing what I know now, Justice, is that from these proceedings, many people said a lot of things. Documents were read, and there are specific people who were implicated. And when those people, for example, I'll talk on for myself, from what I heard from here, there were a lot of areas where I was implicated. And when I wanted to present the truth that I knew, it was not something that was accepted by the council and the justice in most of the time. It was like I'm bringing new stories, but I don't know justice, but I will say if the South African law is as great as we know, it will come up with the relevant people who should be charged. Because I came here asking for records so that I can prepare. Some of the records, I was just referred from this. And I was treated most of the time like the accused. That's my feeling. I might be wrong, but I felt that way, that I'm already been accused. And that to me, justice didn't fare me well. That's why I'm saying the law should just take its course. And whatever the law will say, I believe everyone will abide by the law. The only problem and challenge is that we have lost people. But the law, let the law take its course.
What equitable redress do you think the families of the deceased and the survivors are entitled to or should be given? That is my work ultimately, if you don't know. This is not a criminal hearing. It's an arbitration hearing. So I'm asking for your guidance. What form of redress do you think the families are entitled to?
Justice, I think the family is what I'm thinking. I may not be right.
Yes, no, I'm asking for your opinion, yes.
Yes, my opinion will be there are several things that can be managed to assist the family.
Yes, what are
The
they?
first thing, I think you started with the first step of trying to find closure. The second thing can be taking the family by hand and exposing them for counseling and support. And the other thing that can be done is the family therapy, where specific families, according to how they cope with the loss of the loved one, can be taken as a group and be exposed to family therapy. And then I'll just give you what I'm thinking. If maybe, I'm not quite sure, some of the things, if there is any way that you can compensate the family from the funds and support that they use during the burial, that one also, I will say, is something that you can do to support the family. And again, to say much more that is needed will be to have the families together with all the community to understand what is mental health, what are the challenges in mental health, and how can the department or how should the community or the country support the families, even those who are not families, because some of our patients that died and some who committed suicide, they were not supported by the mere community. We know, so that the whole community also should be supported. We understand, like, we worked so hard when we were struck by HIV, and no one is now, against that. But with mental health, there is still a stigma. Mentally ill patient is passing there, people will laugh at them, or the family are passing there, they'll say, this family of people who are mentally ill. In our own vernacular language is very hurting. So I will say that can be one of the things that the community health, mental health services in the community are strengthened to reach each and every community member. I think that's what
There's one thing that you said nothing about. It's apology. You've mentioned many things, but you haven't mentioned apology.
Oh, I thought I mentioned it before, but it's okay. The apology that we've been doing throughout, even that is very, very critical, justice, that there should be an apology to the family that lost the loved one and the family that had sleepless night and thinking about what will happen to my loved one.
Including the survivors of the Marathon project, isn't it so?
Yes, Council.
Anyway, re-examination.
Thank you, Justice. Justice, I would like to introduce 3 documents, 2 of which came from Dr. Manamela, for the sake of completeness. It's LR 87 and LR 88. They relate to the information that there was an inquiry on from legal aid and from justice.
Yes.
If maybe Dr. Manamela could just explain what those documents are. Maybe we could start with LR 87, which says Annexure 13, Waverley Care Center placements.
Okay, because they are not as... Okay, this document came out as the... Oh, all right, let's start with what, 13, 14. These documents indicate the placement that took place from the 2 facilities of Life Esidimeni. Why I was giving them to the Chief Justice was when we were trying to say there were people who were contacted, the family members were contacted, and then this document indicates who was contacted and where they couldn't make it to contact a person. It was supporting what I said. There are families who were contacted. Some, they said they didn't find them. Some, they were not just being contacted before. The patients were leaving to the NGOs and hospitals.
According to these documents, it would seem that most of the patients have contact details, like their address and phone numbers and the contact person. Am I correct? Annexure 13 in respect of Waverley Care Center.
Yes.
Was that the case?
Yes.
If we can then go to LR 88, which relates to Randfontein Complex. If you could also take us through those columns that appear on LR 88.
So this one went further to indicate where the patients were placed, and also date of the family date of on which the family were notified, and where they didn't find anybody. They also indicated not yet contacted, but it also indicates where the mentally ill patients were sent.
So not yet contacted meant that they were not contacted, or you were unable to get hold of the family members?
From the report to my office was they were unable to find anyone on the contact numbers that were indicated. It was also going further to say there were some patients who were given 7 days treatment, and this document were prepared by Life Esidimeni.
Yes. I see that some were given 28-day supply.
Yes, that's what the service level agreement was requiring. But somewhere the Life Esidimeni decided to give 7 days. And when it was brought to my attention, I referred them back to service level agreement, and from there others were given the 28 days medical supply.
So that was rectified, in other words?
Yeah, in
the 7-day supply was
yes, in the
rectified.
following ones, but the others were already gone. And then what we were supposed to do was to find our own doctors to look at the medication for this. We also asked the hospital to supply the medication because they were already out of Life Esidimeni.
But in a nutshell, all the patients were given proper medication when they left Life Esidimeni and when they were placed with the NGOs, according to these documents and your evidence.
Yes, those that were on medication were given medication. It's just that when you look on the death reports of some of the patients, you will see, because they must tell you exactly how the patient were arriving and what was the treatment. You will see the polypharmacy, you will see that they didn't have records that will indicate whether blood levels were taken. You will see also how the patient was received. Most of them, it was said here that they were not well kept when they were received. Something like that in the death reports that were sent at that time. But we were still, because this project, we were working with Life Esidimeni, although they were not so keen, but we had to work with them to say, we don't know the family, you have got the contact number of the family, you have got the file of the patient, so we will need you. That's why the last meeting we agreed on who should report when and how.
Okay, just lastly on the medication, what I want to find out is, in light of your evidence and the evidence that is before the tribunal of the fact that patients were transported in buses to the NGOs, how would people were transporting them, how would they know that this medication belonged to this patient?
Okay, Council, just as I said, I allocated 2 DDs to each and every area. So the 2 DDs were planning the transfer. So they will know this is for this person. Again, every patient had a photo. This is so and so, because you may call the mentally ill patient by name. They may not even know their name. So you have got their photo and the name, and then they'll prepare the treatment. And when they go to the bus, the treatment are labeled. This is for this one, this is for this one.
And then when they arrive at the NGO, who would then orientate the NGO carers or caregivers on how to administer medication?
Okay, as we already assessed the NGO, we know there is a professional nurse or nursing auxiliary or enrolled nurse who will be receiving the patient as they are being handed over by our staff. The staff from the district went. In some cases, Life Esidimeni also, they took along the patient when we transferred them there. So when they received the patient, everything was labeled. They had the photos, and photos will be put at the bed of every patient so that they mustn't forget who is this one. So the orientation will be done there, and we sent nurses again, my DDs again, and the team that MEC assigned, which will be multidisciplinary team from the district, to visit the NGO at the beginning, so that when they've got any teething problem, they will be able to assist them in time.
Thank you. The other aspect that I wanted to clear before we move on, in respect of the causes of death, you were quizzed a lot about what could have caused the death, and you had your own theories. I would like to refer you to file number 2 files. The first one will be file number 9, please. In the spirit of also trying to assist the families to find closure, maybe it would be better if you base your responses to what appears on the documents. So on file number 9, I would refer you to page 3000. This is a notice of death in respect of Busisiwe Shabalala. It was completed by Dr. Kinoshi. That appears on 3001. And then the cause of death appears on 3003. Just in the middle of the page, under paragraph G. Can you see it?
Yes, Council.
Can you please read it on record?
Hypothermia, and the B is severe dehydration.
Would you please just explain in your experience what would lead to severe dehydration?
There are many areas or factors that may lead to severe dehydration.
In light of the evidence that is before this tribunal that in some NGOs, patients are not given food and water, would that result in severe dehydration?
That if they are not given water and food, it can be the result. But there are other reasons for severe dehydration. If a person has got diarrhea overnight, the following day, he or she can present with severe diarrhea.
But in this case, Dr. Manamela, there is no evidence that the Busisiwe had diarrhea the day before. You know, the reason I'm asking this, I'm not really trying to prove anything. I just want us, as you were leading your evidence earlier on, in the spirit of trying to help the families to find closure, just to show to you that these patients did not receive proper care at the NGOs. And in this case, the cause of death is severe dehydration. And there's evidence that they were not getting food and they were not given water in some NGOs. It is only in that light that I'm asking this question.
Yes, which is really not acceptable because Busisiwe seems to have been in the hospital, not even in the NGO.
Yes, she was
So
transferred to the hospital because she was not well. Otherwise, she was in an NGO. If you go to page 2988, you would see that she was at Cullinan Care and Rehabilitation Center.
Before I even go to that, Cullinan Care and Rehabilitation Center is a hospital classified as hospital for mentally disabled. We made that aware during the process of Umbaz. Cullinan was not an NGO. That's why they've got what they've Miss Ndofu, CEO. So I was going to that page, but I felt I must clarify what Cullinan is. It's one of the hospitals that is designated by the minister, not even an NGO.
Okay, okay. If we could just go to file number 10, please, the last one, just the last example. All that I want to show you, Doctor, is that...
But don't you know, you should know, isn't it, that the patients that you placed at Anchor, many of them, when the place was shut down, had to go back to Cullinan. Don't you know that?
I had so, Justice.
Why did you hear so?
Because that's when I left. That's when I was suspended by the time they were taking them back. So I had so. But when these patients were sick and the Cullinan cannot manage the hypothermia and dehydration because they are for disabled, mentally disabled, they will take them to our general hospital. The Anchor also won't take the patient who's having hypothermia and dehydration to Cullinan, but they will take them to general hospital where the treatment for such physical problems.
Did you follow Mrs. Manaka's evidence?
Some of the evidence were not audible, but I saw her.
Some of the evidence was what?
Was not audible on the resources that I was using.
You go ahead, Carmen.
Thank you, Justice. The last one appears on page 3531 on the file that I just gave you. This is a post-mortem in respect of Deborah Petla. The post-mortem was conducted by Dr. Muso Paul Morule. It was conducted on the 31st of March 2016. That's the affidavit that appears on page 3531. Can you see that affidavit? Now, if you go to page 3534, are you on page 3534, Dr. Manamela?
It's a little bit cancelled. Let me read the death register number. Is the one that starts with that, because the number 35 is there, but 3 something is cancelled, and you may say it's 32 or is.
It's 3534. It's clearly marked 3. Otherwise, it's page number 4 of the document. On top it says death register number DK 521 of 2016. 4. Yes.
Right.
If you go right, the second last paragraph there, that's the contents that were found in her stomach. The stomach is pale and intact. It contains 2 bottled up plastics, which are a size of a fist. Several pieces of brown papers are found in the stomach. Partially digested food resembles samp and beans. And if you just keep your finger there and go back to page 3530, the cause of death is noted there, the immediate cause of death.
3530.
Yes. Do you see it in the middle of the page?
Yes.
Can
I
you read it
see
on record, please?
Yes, I can see it.
Can you read it on record?
Asphyxia due to aspiration of blood.
What does that mean?
Sure. I'm not a medical doctor, but I will attempt to answer it.
Yes, please, you may.
I will attempt to answer it.
Yes,
because it means, from my level, it means that this person has inhaled blood.
Coming from, in light of what I showed you on page, on the stuff that was found in her tummy?
I'm not a specialist who can be able to clarify this to the team. Maybe if we get the specialist, we'll be able to
No,
clarify
the only reason
why
I'm showing
the
you-
aspiration.
The only reason I'm showing you this is because you kept saying that if you could see the post-mortem reports. So I've just took only 2, which shows that these patients were neglected and that caused their death. Do you agree?
Yes, if the doctor has written it, I agree.
Thank you.
Although under this, they are not talking about the aspiration of blood. I
Well,
will
we have
ask
to hear the
further.
witness, please.
I'll
Would you keep
ask
quiet,
further
please?
to find out about the blood as well, because to me, we need to get to the bottom of this.
Thank you, Justice. The last document that I would like to refer you to, just on few aspects, is LR 86. And that will be the interview that you conducted with Professor Makgabo, the Ombud. Earlier on, you were quizzed during cross-examination about many warnings that you received, and be it from the stakeholders, from your colleagues, etc. So I just want to take you through to some of those which appears on the interview. I'm not sure if you have the documents.
Does the
in front of
patient
you.
have LR 86?
Yes, it does. It does.
Oh.
I don't have it.
Did I say patient? I'm sorry. The witness. I beg your pardon, doctor.
No, you can use that one. You can borrow another. Yes, if you could just go to page 14 of the document, please.
Well, do you remember this interview with Professor Makgabo?
Thank you, Justice. The date appears on the first page is 23 November 2015, the date of the interview.
Yes, I remember the date, Council.
The interview was recorded and then it was transcribed, and this is the transcript of the interview. Do you confirm?
I didn't receive my transcription, even if I've, my document, even if I've asked, but we can carry on with it.
Thank you. If we could-
But there was an interview with Professor Makgabo,
Yes,
and it was visibly taped. Is that right?
that's correct.
And in it, he tells you that this is a voluntary interview and he's going to tape the answers. But he would like you to affirm that you're going to tell him the truth and nothing but the truth. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then the interview started. Very well.
Thank you,
think-
Justice. I'm corrected. It would appear that the interview was on the 23rd of November 2016 and not on the 2015.
Yes, it would have been
Yes,
2016.
that appears on the last page of the transcript, Justice. It says date held 23 November 2016.
Yes, I mean the very following page, it has the right date,
Yes.
except on the front page. Yeah.
Thank you. If we could quickly go to page 14, please. At the beginning of your evidence in chief, I referred you to a file which had a minute. It was file number 8, where there was a minute of a meeting that you had where Professor Gina had raised some concerns in respect of the NGOs. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So
Council.
from paragraph number 6 of page 14, it would seem that there was a letter that Professor Gina had written with her colleagues, Dr. Maligwe and Dr. Chrobla, that they had written to you raising concerns. And if we could read it, the actual letter appears, or the extract of a letter appears from paragraph number 25.
Paragraph, or you mean line?
Line number 25, Justice, thank you. Are you familiar with that letter?
The letter from the psychiatrist.
Yes,
Yes, I don't see it here, but I know they wrote a letter.
yes. Can you read from line number 24, please, where it starts with, "We wish to reiterate."
We wish to reiterate our support for the deinstitutionalization of mental health care users as envisioned in our national mental health policy framework and strategic plan. We are, however, greatly concerned that the decision to reduce beds at Life Esidimeni does not follow the process outlined in the same plan. Should I carry on?
Yes, please, up to the end of that.
We know that
extract.
this decision will have devastating impact on the health and social well-being of mental health care users. I note devastating impact on health and social well-being of mental health care users, comma, the healthcare system and members of the community. We also know that the decision will likely escalate healthcare costs in our province. We therefore request an urgent meeting with the Honorable MEC, Ms. Matlankuyu, QD, to discuss this concern in our quest to contribute to the provision of quality healthcare services for all communities in Gauteng, as mandated by our mission statement.
Thank you. You were asked a lot of questions by my learned friend, Advocate Kraus and Advocate Hasim, on the warnings that you received and in respect of implementing this project. it would seem that this is one of the warnings. Would you please explain if you took heed of these warnings?
As the Director for Mental Health Services, I took this very seriously because I'm the one who advised them to write a letter to MEC, but unfortunately they wrote to me. I took it further with the leadership, and they were called in a meeting to be a project team. And from that time, I didn't hear any concerns from the psychiatrist.
Who are leadership?
They were, like I always said, Mr. Museno was a project manager, and the DDG, Dr. Libete, HOD, Dr. Silvano, and MEC, and other chief directors that I don't know who were actually called upon. But after this letter, we were still continuing with our planning meeting. I indicated to them properly that this letter should be directed to MEC, and we discussed it there, and I don't know what happened. What I just saw was that when the MEC appointed these people, HOD appointed the very same people to be part of project team, they became part of project team and never mentioned their concerns in the same meeting.
I see. And then if you go to the last one, if you go to page 84, are you on page 84? From line number 19, which reads, the media, this is your evidence to the Ombud. The media never supported the process. The people who stand to say that they are in the community, they never supported the process. To me, it is like when you are at the family of one family, and then you keep on fighting. You are creating a space for your enemies, and this is what I saw with this process. What were you trying to say there to the Ombud?
Council, because I asked this document for my appeal, and it was not given to me. And I can't remember what I was going to say. And as it was not given to me at the time I was looking for, then I'm unable to comment on this one, because it's like the construction of the words also. I don't know if I don't understand it now, but
you were not suggesting that that the media did not support the project. Were you suggesting that they didn't support the project?
I'm not sure on this one, but what I know was that the media was out to tarnish the department about the project.
That's how you saw them, yes.
That I saw, but on this
family?
Context, the family, as it was indicated, they're also not so keen to support the project.
Did you see them as enemies of the project?
No, I never saw anybody as enemies of the project. That is why when the psychiatrists who initially were showing, clearly talking in the meeting that they don't support, when they agreed, I never saw anyone with the enemy.
Yes.
Because
okay, so with that in mind, it is apparent, it is on record that there were concerns were raised by the media, by the families, and by your colleagues. And Dr. Talatala, when he was giving evidence, he said he reached a point where he said, time will tell. And he waited for time to tell, and the time did tell. So I just want, in concluding your evidence, what do you want to say to the families who also toyed, even though they didn't have any medical background to understand the consequences, but they somehow foresaw the consequences, and the media, who were also, whom you are saying you saw them as enemies, as well as the stakeholders. What do you want to say in light of what happened, in light of the deaths of 143 mental health care users?
like I said, all deaths are regrettable, whether they happened in the hospital, in the community, or in the NGO. they
Yes,
are really
but I just want you to
regrettable
say it
and-
in a very crystal clear sentence, whether you believe you were right in going ahead with the project in spite of all these concerns that were raised, or you now know that they were right. That is the family, the media, and the stakeholders, and your colleagues. Do you think that they were right all along?
Council, I really don't know. I don't know what to say on that. But what I can say is that this is saddening me, and it was so painful to learn of the death, and I cannot say who was wrong, who was not wrong, who was
Dr. Manamela,
right.
the question, I know council, excuse me, ask a number of things, but the essence of it is all of the people who warned that disastrous consequences may happen or eventuate. Time and events have shown that they were correct. It did, those consequences happened. What do you say? Were they correct? And were you wrong in your assessment? It's a different question from whether you intended people to die or not. Now, that exact science called hindsight. Now, we know the families were afraid. We know some people were afraid who wrote to you and so on. We know Dr. Talatala said time will tell, and the disastrous consequences have occurred. And the question is, do you accept and admit that whatever you thought you were doing, you were wrong? That's the question.
Justice is not just as easy as it can be because of a lot of factors that need to be there. But from what I see now, most of the areas prove that the process came up with the negative consequences. But we need to have everything, like during this investigation, it was never investigated about the medication, about lack of records, other variables about the sexes of the patient, life expectancy. So those other variables still need to be taken care. And what happened in Life Esidimeni? How many patients died there in Life Esidimeni? And what have we done? So at the end of the day, we regret, but there are other variables that needed to be considered.
I'm totally surprised by that answer. Look, whatever the variables are, people warned you that dire consequences might occur. You ignored them and went ahead. And the consequences eventuated. So the simple question is, were they correct to be concerned and to warn you not to do it? Now that 143 people died, whatever the variables, they died. And the question is, do you admit that their prediction was correct and your prediction was wrong?
That's correct, Justice.
You do admit that. You do realize that now.
That's correct.
That will be all. Thank you, Justice.
That's re-examination, and I can see some counsel straightening her mic. Advocate Hassan?
Justice, with respect and with your indulgence, there's one piece of information that's only a few minutes ago come to light, and I'm trying to have it printed. And I would ask that we don't release this witness until we're able to put this piece of information to her. We may need a 5-minute adjournment if you are inclined to grant me the indulgence.
Yes, but can we go ahead with the
With the
swan song? Or do you want to put your information first?
I think it would be preferable to put it to the witness before
First,
she
okay.
finishes. Yes.
That's fine. Is there any counsel who's opposed to that? Is there any counsel who is averse to this request for a short adjournment? How short is short? It's 4 o'clock now.
Yes, Justice. Obaking's just advised me that the printer is working, so if we could just have 5 minutes to print it, it's just a letter,
Which you'd like to put to the witness before the witness?
which I would like to put to the witness and obviously to everybody else before the hearing.
I get like what's this? Normally,
Justice?
so I'm going to adjourn.
Well,
Yes, Counsel.
we just wanted to inquire whether will this questioning be part of the cross-examination or will it be part of the re-examination, this piece of evidence?
Well, there have to be an application for reopening of the examination,
Yes, because like,
which could either be opposed or be by agreement. If it's
Yes.
opposed, obviously we'll hear argument and decide whether to reopen.
well, like we just wanted to get clarity so that like we avoid a situation where counsel always get a second bite of the cherry when a case is not made out. Because like otherwise it will just prolong these proceedings, because if from that line of questioning, other counsel will also want to have an opportunity to deal with those aspects.
Indeed, the rule is well known. Every counsel who's not leading has only one bite of the cherry.
Indeed so.
Advocate Hassim will have to apply for reopening, and she'll have to say why she didn't do it at the right time, if the application is opposed. If it is not opposed, and there's no demonstration of prejudice, I would allow her to reopen. But what we must first get clear is an application to reopen, that's what I understand it to be, and that always entitles everybody else. That is why it must be justified to cross-examine on the basis of the new line of cross-examination.
Well, if that's the approach that the justice is taking, will not have any opposition. We were just concerned that it should not be a trend that one will simply just seek an opportunity to put further questions to the witness when an opportunity has come and passed.
Yes, it's not there for the taking.
Indeed.
That's why you apply, and she has to apply. That's why I asked all of you if anyone has an objection. If there's an objection, she must substantiate the application. If there's no objection, the task of the arbitrator becomes easier. But in any event, I have to satisfy myself that it's justified for you to reopen. Why only now?
Justice, it's not really reopening. It's relevant to evidence that's emerged from Dr. Manamela's testimony. It's not a new issue, and it's only information that's been brought to our attention within the last few minutes. It's in order to, I mean, it'll become apparent if I'm entitled to hand in the document, which is a letter. And part of the purpose of this proceedings, and it's why I prefaced my request with the acknowledgement that I am seeking the indulgence of this hearing. Part of the purpose of the hearing is to get to the truth. And the merits have been conceded. So in that sense, it's not a typical case of getting a second bite
But
of the
even
cherry.
so, this witness has been here for 4 days.
I fully appreciate that, and I would not like to keep her unduly long. And if I'm willing to constrain
What
myself,
I mean, the application could have been done earlier, not the last moment.
it couldn't have been done earlier, Justice, because I only received the document about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to constrain myself
Well,
to...
technically, this is a reopening of your cross-examination, which allows everybody else to follow on. There is the impact of what you are doing now, is that we'll have to allow everybody another slice at the cherry. And that's why courts and tribunals are so slow at allowing it.
I fully appreciate that, Justice. The only point I have to make in that regard is that we do want to get to the truth. And it's a short question. It's to clarify something that the witness has already said. And I'm willing to limit myself to 2 questions.
Again, starting from my left, is there any objection from you, counsel?
Thank you, Justice. We have seen the document, and we also think it's in the interest of justice. We won't have any cross-examination after that.
Is there any objection from you, counsel? Have you seen the document? Let's start there.
We've seen the document. We have no objection, and we welcome it. Thank you, Justice.
Counsel, have you seen the document?
Justice, we have not had the opportunity to consider the document, but we'll leave the decision in the discretion of the justice. We will not take the matter.
Well, I've seen no document. I've been given nothing yet. I suppose I will be given some document. Thank you.
Thank you,
Advocate Gina?
Justice. We have received the document. We have no objection to the questioning.
Well, let me look at the document and then make up my mind whether, in fact, we ought to go down that route. Yeah, I think a copy of the, ultimately you're going to give the witness a copy of the letter. Very well, you may proceed with
Thank you,
putting
Justice.
questions to the witness.
Thank you, Justice. Dr. Manamela, earlier in your testimony, you said that that the SAPS has not requested you to provide any information or to make a statement to them. Do you recall that?
That's correct.
And you also said that you would be more than willing to cooperate with the SAPS. Do you recall that?
That's correct.
Have you seen this letter before? That's before you.
That's correct.
Is it a letter from your attorneys,
That's correct.
dated 2nd November 2017?
That's correct.
To a Dr. Kwabi Mare.
That's correct.
Do you know who Dr. Kwabi Mare is?
I know her.
And in what position is she in the Gauteng Department of Health?
She's the acting director, mental health services.
So if we can have regard to this letter, and if we could just get straight to the point, and I'd like to then take you to paragraph 4 of the letter.
No, but who are ACM Inc. attorneys? Are they your attorneys?
The witness said that they are her attorneys.
Oh, you said that already?
Yes.
Did I miss that? Okay.
In paragraph 4, it says, your request for our client to attend to SAPS Diagonal Street today, 2 November 2017 at 10 a.m. to give statement with regard to the death of mental health care users is an extremely short and prejudicial notice to our client. Do you see that?
That's correct.
Do you recall this request being made of you?
That's correct.
And then in paragraph 6, it says, our instructions are that the circumstances surrounding the death of the mental health care users have been dealt with by the Health Ombud. The Health Ombud issued his report on 1 February 2017. Insofar, paragraph 7, insofar as the Health Ombud's report relates to our client has appealed against the adverse findings and recommendations of that report. Do you see that? And so on in paragraph 7.
That's correct.
And finally, it ends, our client is unable to attend to SAPS as requested, and all her rights are reserved. Why did you say that you had not been approached to make a statement and that you were willing to cooperate, in the light of this letter?
I'm going to answer this letter. But firstly, I want to present to the judge. I thought I will say that if justice will agree. Section 27, they testified against me to the ombuds. I was never given chance to ask them questions. They came to my appeal, they testified. I was never given chance to ask their questions. We are here, they asked me questions. I agreed, I availed myself. But the challenge is that we are finishing, they are bringing.
Dr. Manamela, I'm not sure what question you're answering.
I asked to say something before I answer. I'm going to answer this one. But I want that to be known.
Let's allow Dr. Manamela to say what he has to say, and you can continue the questions. Yes, yes, ma'am.
According to the National Amendment Act of Health, I should have asked all those people who gave evidence against me. I was not called to do that. Even in this one, I'm not given chance to ask anyone who gave evidence against me. But I am saying Section 27 was silent when we didn't get the record of the patient. They never said anything. Now we're almost done. They are bringing this. I'm going to answer it justice. I just want that to come out because I thought I mustn't. With this report, I was still waiting for my appeal result. And when Dr. Gobi called me, it was in the afternoon and said, come tomorrow. And I discussed with her that I won't be available tomorrow. And then, but at a stage that will be planned, that can happen. Then I gave my letter because she insisted and said, we're paying you, you must be there. You don't know what is happening in my life because I'm no longer at work. So that's why I said, my legal rep, you need to look at that. And then I just felt, justice, that there is a lot of unfairness on my side here. This letter can be explained better by my legal team, but I still said I'm willing to be questioned by SABC if they're willing, as long as process are followed properly, because it was just a call after 4, come tomorrow. When I spoke to her, she said, I didn't even get your email well because I was in the bus at home, in the bus in Pretoria. So I'm just saying to you, I never said I won't do anything. My legal team were also concerned that if they call you now and say tomorrow, and they don't know what's happening, and you're still waiting for appeal results. That's another thing.
Okay. Again, the question must be put again. Please answer the question.
Sorry. Perhaps, Dr. Manamela, and we just want to get straight to the point, regardless of your antipathies to certain people and their lawyers. The last sentence says the following: our client is unable to attend to SAPS as requested and all her rights are reserved. It was a refusal to attend. Would you agree?
That was a refusal to attend the following day.
Why did you not refer to this when...
The following day, because I was told today that come tomorrow.
Okay, just hold on, Dr. Manamela. The question was the following. It was related to your own testimony. This is not a new issue that's being introduced. It's a question that had been put to you by the Honourable Justice as to whether you had been approached by the SAPS for a statement, and your answer was no.
Dr. Kubi is not SAPS. That's why I said no, because we were looking at the relevant process, the right process for me to appear, like what happened with others. I might be suspended. It doesn't mean that I'm just a fool at home. People were approached properly, were asked to bring the document.
Are you saying you have no duties under your paid suspension?
Can I finish? I've got a duty when I'm still there. But people were approached properly. They were told what to bring along and what not to bring along. I was just receiving a call after 4 and say, come tomorrow. And I was not even around here.
Okay.
And that's why
so it wasn't possible at that time?
Yes, but I agreed. Take me from what I said.
So did you then offer to meet with the SAPS at a date that would be at your convenience?
At the time that the proper letter was sent to me, I will meet them. Even if I'm not in the province, I will come back from the province and
Did you offer to meet them at a date of your
We
convenience?
never received the reply from this letter from Dr. Guibi or anybody in the department or SAPS. But I'm aware that people were told, were identified, my name was there, and then they were told what to bring along. I was just called because everybody is washing his hands, Ganna. I was just called, come tomorrow at this time. I'll make sure you are safe. It cannot be. So I'm waiting for the SAPS. When they call me, I'll go. And they will call me properly like they did to others. It means that if I'm guilty here, anybody sees me as a guilty person because I came here as a witness. But now
Yes.
I'm being questioned as an accused.
No, see, Dr. Manamela, you were the one who said you were not aware and you had not been approached.
Yes, because...
And so I'm just putting it to you that, in fact, that's not true, that you had been aware, you had been approached, and if you were willing to cooperate, as you earlier said, you would have made yourself available to the SAPS, and you haven't done so. Isn't that correct?
Council, I didn't want to take just this time because even this letter said it's a short notice and we were waiting for the response, which we didn't get. Then I will say I was not willing if I got a response. We never got any response from this letter. So I'm still said, that's why I said I have got no problem for whoever wants to know about the project. I was part of the project team. But it needs to be done properly and rightly and without any discrimination or a violation of anyone's
Do you know that
dignity.
you're not the only person who's been requested to make a statement to the SAPS?
It can be, yes, and I don't have a problem with that.
So there's no discrimination.
The way I was informed, there is discrimination because I was prohibited to put my thoughts together to think what it might be needed. I was told after 4 towards 5 to say come tomorrow. So it was not fair and it was not in a dignified way. So I was hoping to get the response.
And you haven't been in contact with Dr. Kwabi Maria again
No,
since then?
She hasn't contacted
And you're on
me
paid
about that.
suspension.
I think...
Do you not think that while
Cast-
you're on paid suspension, let me just
Ca-
finish the question and then you can have your say. Do you not think that while you're on paid suspension, you still have a duty of accountability at the very least? You've not been dismissed from the department yet.
I think the issue of me being paid and being paid all the time, I think I earned the money in terms of my qualifications and in terms of me being appointed. It cannot always arise. And it's like the way it was also said, you repeat it again, you know you are on suspension and we're paying you. I know that. How come that I should be reminded all the time? And I said, I'm available. I even indicated to Dr. Guibi, maybe if we look at this date, but she never came back to me with those days, and I couldn't go
And
to
you
the
never
office.
contacted her yourself,
She never
is that
came
so?
back to me.
And you never contacted her yourself afterwards, is that correct?
I contacted her through this legal document. And
But
I was
after this
hoping-
document, did you contact
I was
her?
hoping that she will also contact me through the document, the
Dr.
same
Manamela,
document.
if you could just answer my question, I'll stop. Did you contact Dr. Kwabi Maria after this letter?
I couldn't contact her.
Okay. Thank you, Justice.
Thank you. Advocate Krause,
No cross-examination. Thank you, Justice.
Advocate Groenewald,
We will leave it at that. Thank you, Justice.
No questions, thank you, Justice.
Advocate Tina, Advocate Uta.
Justice, I think I'll have 1 or 2 questions.
Yes, certainly.
Dr. Manamela, were you ever contacted by any member of the South African Police Service in relation to this, the issues arising from the project?
Around, immediately we're suspended. Somebody called me and said she wants to meet me. I was not in the province, and I said, I'm not in the province. Can you send me your details? And then he said, okay, who are other people? It was in relation to one patient. he asked me who are the other people who were with when we visited the family. Then I gave him the names of the people I went with to the family. She said, no, if I need any further information, I'll come back to you. So he didn't come back to me. In my own thinking, it means the two officials I gave the number to, it means they helped him. He never came back to me. Then I was only contacted by Dr. Gubi on the date that is indicated here. That was the second. That's all. No one else ever contacted me about that.
I mean, we all know that everyone is anxious, wants to know exactly what had occurred with regard to the implementation of the project. Should the members of the South African police contact you, will you fully cooperate with them in their investigations in order to uncover the truth?
That's correct. That's what I will do.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. But when I asked you whether members of the police, South African police, had been in touch with you, why don't you tell me yes through a letter of the acting head of your department? Why did you just say no?
You know, Justice, she called me. It just slipped my mind because she called me. And we responded, we were waiting. So I was thinking, I'm waiting to be contacted because, you know, the people who were contacted, they were told they have to bring 1, 2, 3 to that. So that's what I was waiting for. And again, because I've got no objection in cooperating with them, I just felt that as soon as they contact me, the way they contacted others, then I will carry on with them and give them the information.
You see, the question had nothing to do with whether you are an accused or not. Let me explain it to you. In our law, any person who dies in circumstances that may not be natural, the police are obliged to open a docket. You know that.
That's correct, Justice.
And have an inquiry, an inquest into that death.
That's correct.
And now we all know, as the state has conceded, these deaths were unlawful. So the state is obliged by law to investigate the causes of death. That is what I was interested in. Are there inquests going on to get to the bottom of the question whether there's criminal liability that attaches to the deaths, which we now know have been caused unlawfully and recklessly? So that is where I was going to. That's why I asked you the question. And I would have hoped you'd say to me, well, yes, one of my colleagues in the department said I must go and meet with the SAPS. Why didn't you tell me that?
I think on the issue of inquest, as it was debated on Monday the 20th when I was here, I always knew it will happen. But when I was contacted by Dr. Gobi, who is the health department employee, not an officer of safety and SAPS. So I got your question that you are looking for me to give you answers related to SAPS. So that's why I said no, because I was still waiting. So not knowing that if she phoned me, that is what I should have done. But I was waiting to say.
When she phoned you, did she say that you should go and meet with the South African Police Service?
She said,
officers?
She said I must come to the office and then I will find the South African police officer and she'll make sure that I'm safe. And then I said, okay, can you?
Safe from what?
I don't know, but that's what she said. Maybe she felt I'm a little bit afraid to go to the office, because one question I asked her, I wanted a letter. When I was suspended, it was clearly indicated I can go to the office only through the invitation by the head of department. So that's why I asked her, and then she said, no, I'll just ensure that you are safe. But only to realize that some people, if they need information, they were supposed to be prepared. Why am I expected to appear everywhere without being prepared? And then we ask.
Now, I was only asking, why didn't you tell me about this approach? That's
Okay, like I was saying, as she was not a police officer, I was waiting. Actually, I'm still waiting for the police officers to contact me. If they do it by themselves or through the HOD, that's what I'm still waiting.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we've come to the end of your evidence, and I thank you for coming and for being here and responding to the subpoena. And I also want to thank you as arbitrator and head of this tribunal for your participation. It's important at many levels, including just the plain level of being held to account for the decisions you have made, a principle we find in our Constitution. We so valued that we even wrote it into our Constitution. It's one of the founding principles in Chapter 1 of our Constitution. So it's a very important thing that we are doing. Those who wield public power are liable to be called to explain the decisions that they've made and the consequences that flow from their decisions. So thank you for coming and being part of this process. We have developed a practice here that at the end of the evidence of anyone who visits us as a witness, that they'd be given the last word. And this is your opportunity to say whatever you may choose to say, particularly to family members of mental health care users who were implicated by the Marathon Project, and to South Africa, those who may care to listen. It's your opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Justice. Thank you also for inviting me here. Two things I want to say before I come to the family. I believe that somehow, somewhere during these proceedings, I was termed or seen as an accused. My right to dignity and privacy were violated. My medical condition was published without my consent. And I witnessed a lot of bias in this proceeding. However, for the sake of the patients that we really loved, I had to endure that. And I just wanted this to be recorded, that I came here looking for document, thinking I'll get document to be ready if I'm accused, but I was placed to be a witness. And then, but the proceeding process put it to me that most were in the accusing line of me as the director of mental health. However, thank you so much for allowing me to come. And I have to reiterate that I'm deeply saddened by the death of the mentally health care users, regardless of where they died and how they died. That is a regrettable moment for me, which kept me also for almost over a year with pain. And I empathize with the families for the pains, the hurts that they experience, the sleepless night. I really empathize with them. And in area where we haven't done things properly to satisfy the family, I want to say my apologies on that area and say I hope at the end of this process, no matter what the outcome will be, the family will find closure from the hardship they went through. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Manamela. You are free to leave if you so choose. There might be one or two housekeeping matters for us to deal with. Again, I thank you, and we are done with your evidence.
Thanks.
Council, shall we talk about Wednesday?
Justice Masaneke, we're supposed to deal with legal aid clients today. They have now been pushed back to Wednesday. We will take off from the witnesses of the legal aid clients. And thereafter, I see from the program that we might have someone else to speak on the state of the mortuaries, I think on behalf of the state. I'm not sure whether we are still going to hear evidence on that, having had somebody else coming from CRCC. I'm sure my colleague, Advocate Utama, would give us some more information on that, whether we are still yet to receive evidence on the state of mortuaries or not.
Let me start with the Advocate Kraus.
Justice, we have witnesses ready and available, and we could, if the mortuary person is not available, we could lead those witnesses.
That will be tomorrow.
And on Wednesday, judges.
On Wednesday, I beg your pardon, Wednesday, yes. Indeed, Wednesday.
That is so.
Very well. Advocate Utama.
Justice, I've been made to understand that from the request of the Mamelodi Hospital, the witness will only be available on the 30th of November, 2017.
When is that?
That will be on Thursday.
On Thursday.
So in light of that, the witnesses represented by legal aid may proceed with their evidence on the Wednesday.
Where's Ms. Anna Jacobus?
Justice, for now, we do not know, but we do understand that she's based in Pretoria. We'll make a follow-up. We'll report back on Wednesday when we reconvene.
Yes, I think we should try and find her and hear from her.
Correct. We have already started when evidence began coming up from Dr. Manamela to find out her contact details. But we'll report back on Wednesday.
Okay.
Thanks, Judge.
Well, very well. I suppose that the balance of the program will stay as is unless otherwise advised.
Correct, Justice Masanak.
Very well. We are done, and I'm not unhappy that we are done. So we are going to 4:30 adjourn until Wednesday morning at 9:30. Thanks. We are adjourned.